So is there such a thing as the best knife for hiking? The simple answer is no, there's not. It's going to depend entirely on your own preferences, your own requirements, and any requirements that the trail may force on you due to its difficulty and just how extreme it is. I've got a great selection of viable options for you to have a look at today, all suitable for general trail use, whether that be a day hike, a weekend, a section or a through. In half of the video I'm going to run through you the disastrous choices that I made and the terrible amount of money I wasted before I arrived at what we're going to look at today. The intention of that is to help you to buy once and to buy right, to buy what's right for you. First up, we've got a Promithi knife. It's variously described as a outdoor survival folding pocket knife and elsewhere as a hiking knife. It's actually very poorly described on Amazon. It states in the initial picture that it's a 1.7 inch blade. It isn't. It is a just under 2.5 inch blade. It correctly states that it is non-locking and is therefore everyday carry UK legal. It also states that it has a bottle opener in the handle, and it doesn't. So very strange description, which is a shame because it's not a bad little knife. The mechanism is indifferent. It's helped to close by the action of a spring, and that spring action is also there on the fully open. But the action is so graunchy and notchy that yeah, it's very difficult to use. The one-handed operation, it's stiff, then eventually the spring does take over, but yeah, the action feels horrible. The handle's very good, it's comfortable. Yeah, I like it a lot. It's got a reasonable blade, but at the price, I think it's about £10. It's a fairly useful option if you're looking for a blade only tool. Having said that, look, live on camera, that's broken. Anyway, it was rubbish, so can be secured with some sort of lanyard should you wish. Wooden inlays are nice. Yeah, you definitely need to sort the action out, but a promising little tool. Next up, we've got the True Utility Jacknife. Comes in a interesting box. It was advertised either as waterproof or water resistant, I can't remember. Not you'd be keeping something as clunky as that though. Pointing out straight away that the issue with this one is it's a locking knife, so therefore non-UK legal, everyday carry. It's nice. I like this. The action's nice, completely out the box. You can hear it lock. It's got a standard side lock action, which works well. A nice thick carbon 420 blade. So those are my two recommendations for a blade only tool. Out of the two, I like the traditional style and the wooden handle of the Promithi, but the True Utility Jacknife does win it over for me. It's far smoother in operation, it's comfier in the hand, but the only downside is it's non-UK legal. So yeah, a strictly hiking knife only. So that one comes in at 92 grams. In one place on the Amazon advert it's down as, I don't know, 68 I think, and in another it's down as 93, so correct to the 93. And the Jacknife 74 grams. Eventually, as my style evolved, I found I wasn't particularly interested in the fire building and woodworking out on the trail, and swung away from the single bladed knife to more of a multi-tool, multifunctional stance. I purchased the Victorinox SD Classic, and I've been using and carrying this for I think about the last year. It has a toothpick, tweezers, and with regard to fold out blades, a file with screwdriver end, and a small but extremely useful blade. At the other end sees the inclusion of a small pair of scissors. I was hopeful that with the purchase of this was going to lead to me being able to leave at home those and further save weight, and for quite a long time that's exactly what happened. I was only doing weekend and day hikes. The first time I went away for a multi-day trip and actually needed to cut my toenails, I found that these scissors were not up to the job. They just weren't strong enough, and with my hoary old man big toenails I felt they were going to break. So that led to the purchase of this, the Victorinox 580 with nail clippers. As you can see, there's a considerable difference in the thickness of the unit, but not a great deal of weight penalty. The nail clippers came from the Wenger line, and the great thing is they're strong enough to actually work. And work superbly well. No problems whatsoever with these. The rest is pretty much the same as the SD Classic. We've got the tweezers and toothpick. The blade is marked as Victorinox rather than Wenger. The file on this one does not have the screwdriver end that it does on the Classic, which I find a little bit strange. So this is my current pack out. The scissors are the Wenger design again, with the metal spring rather than the very thin Victorinox effort, so I prefer those. And that is my current carry. The Classic 22, and the 580, 15 grams heavier. Go on, work those muscles, carry that extra weight. My cat's just joined me and purring loudly. As I said at the beginning of the video, I intend to take you through the route that I travelled, the money that I wasted, the bad decisions I made until I arrived at what's currently the Victorinox 580 nail clip. When my weight started falling off following the adoption of the keto diet, I also found myself with a lot more unused energy, more than I'd ever been used to before, and needed some way of applying that. I knew I wanted to be outdoors, I wanted to sleep outdoors, spend my days outdoors. But I didn't know how. I hadn't really considered backpacking. Backpacking and hiking was really just a means to get somewhere to perhaps practice bushcraft or to perhaps just wild camp. So that led to a Mora knife, a Companion 860. Thankfully it's only a budget model, and having watched too many Rambo films, that led on to braiding with paracord and strapping it on somewhere with the carabiner, and then the addition of a fire steel and a disposable lighter within some inner tube, and it weighs about 300 pounds. I used it once for a weekend on private woodland in Leicestershire, bushcraft outdoor skills weekend. Great fun, only time I've ever used a knife. That was followed by an interest in multi-tools and the purchase of this. Actually, I think it was a birthday or Christmas present from my partner. What model is it? A Leatherman Waves. For some reason I decided that every time I went out I needed to have a big set of pliers, files and knives and all sorts of things in here. So fairly decent blade, and then it's crammed, packed with tools on the inside, bottle openers, screwdrivers. Anyway, never been used. I think if you were out hiking and you were passing perhaps a nuclear facility that was in some sort of immediate trouble and you had this on you, you may be able to help out. Or a farmer's tractor or combine harvester is packed up, again, perhaps you could be of assistance. But for hiking it's just very expensive and very heavy. So whilst remaining fully convinced that a Leatherman multi-tool with, in particular, pliers, must have pliers, was still the way to go, I got very bored of lugging this around and never having used it. So swapped it out for this. A smaller Leatherman again. Obviously it's got pliers, must have pliers. I'm very unfamiliar with this tool simply because, again, I've carried it for hundreds of miles and I've never used it. It's got a toothpick, it's got everything but a blade. I traded the pliers for a blade, so I had to buy a separate blade. And now this little chap is actually useful. This is a Spyderco Bug. It weighs 12 grams. Let me give you some idea of the size. Very small, very sharp, and it's the only bit of that setup that I've repeatedly used. A great little knife. I think they're about £20. I'll put a link to it. It should be considered. It's very, very useful. So eventually, and I think probably grudgingly, I did give up the idea that pliers were an absolute must for the trail and headed back down a single blade route with this Gerber tactical knife. Again, as you can see by the size of it, non-UK, legal, locking knife. I think I was persuaded by the hull, thought that was rather good, something that Special Forces might carry, so therefore I had to have one. It's never been out of the house. I think it's 130, 140 grams, and it lives in a drawer. Best place for it. Next on the list was back to the Victorinox Swiss Army type knife line. This was the first one. I can't even be bothered to get them all out. Again, it hardly got any use whatsoever. I used the main blade. And that was all. Too big, too heavy. But then things started to improve and I dropped onto the line that we saw in the main part of the video. The Classic, and now the 580 nail clip. Okay, let's wrap that up there. I hope that was useful, probably in two ways. One, I hope it's given you some ideas on what perhaps you should be looking at, and just as importantly, what perhaps it's best not to look at all. I hope you did find some value in the video, and if you did, please be kind enough to hit the like button. Also consider subscribing if you want some more videos on keto, on hiking, on gear, on all things related. Thanks ever so much for watching. Content will be coming regularly, so I'll see you on the next one.